Greetings. Okay, in this video we're going to step through the 4 pillars of recommendations that actually make up the Revival Health and Vitality platform. These are the specific actions that I'm recommending you incorporate into your daily routine to achieve lifelong health and vitality. What are the 4 pillars? Number 1, fix your fuel. Number 2, tame your hunger. Number 3, start moving again. And finally, number 4, mind your mind. Now, the interesting and challenging thing about each of these 4 topics is there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do to try to improve your health. So what I've done for each one is I provide you with my recommendation in terms of where I think it'll make sense for most people to get started, and that'll have the greatest immediate impact on health and how you feel on a day-to-day basis, right? So I've labeled each of those 1 or 2 actions as the urgent or mission critical things to get started on. And then after that, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can explore to personalize, to customize, to make all of this work within your specific routine and circumstances, okay? So let's step through the 4 topics. Starting with fix your fuel. In terms of the mission critical item, I always start with the following caveat. This assumes you don't smoke or drink excess alcohol. Those are both really bad for your health, and that would be the priority, although I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, right? If that's not the case, then I'm very confident that the place to start is eliminate the deceitful 3. That's the added sugars, the refined grains, and the processed seed oils. Now, these 3 ingredients, they make up nearly 2/3 of the modern American diet. And at those volumes and in the formats in which we consume them, they are definitely screwing up your metabolic health, and they're setting you up for some serious health problems further down the road. So start with that. Now, when I say eliminate, I know that's a strong word. What that means is they can't be the base of your diet, right? They should only be a small part. I still make pancakes and waffles for the family every Sunday, and that is effectively the deceitful 3 combined. But that's it. It's an exception. And for the rest of the week, those 3 ingredients are actually a very, very small part of my diet and my total calories, right? So start with that, eliminate the deceitful 3. In terms of taking it to the next level within Fix Your Fuel, again, there is a bunch of stuff you can do and experiment with in each of these topics, and I'm not going to step through them now. Here's a list of some of those for Fix Your Fuel. But the idea is exactly as I build out the content for the platform, we'll get into much more detail on each of the 4 pillars of recommendations. I would just emphasize here the first one on that list, which is eat real food. If you're able to eliminate the deceitful 3 from your diet, that'll actually take you a long way towards this objective. But my general rule of thumb is if you can see it in nature, then it's real food. If it's not, it's processed and often highly processed. So I would definitely recommend eating real food. All right, so that's the first pillar, fix your fuel. Next pillar, tame your hunger. And the mission critical item here is to incorporate and practice intermittent fasting, have that in your daily routine. And by that I mean having at least a 14-hour window each day in which you don't consume any calories. You can drink non-caloric beverages, obviously water included, and that also includes the time that you're asleep, so that helps obviously to make it through the 14 hours. And then you concentrate basically all of your calories, or 95+% of your calories, in a 10-hour window each day. Now, why do this? This ties to a number of issues that are generated by our modern eating pattern, which is anchored on 3 meals a day plus snacking, which basically means that if we're up, we're eating. This eating pattern, it creates a whole bunch of issues, right? The first one is it actually conditions our body to feel hungry over the course of the entire day. And tied to that, number 2, it creates a disconnect between how frequently and how much we eat versus what our body actually requires in terms of energy and nutrients. And finally, within the context of the modern diet itself, it also conditions our body to run almost exclusively on carbohydrates as its main fuel, as opposed to being able to toggle easily back and forth between burning fat and using carbohydrates. And that has a really strong impact on how much we suffer from hunger over the course of the day, and it also has a really big impact on our levels of energy throughout the day. Now, intermittent fasting, it addresses all three of these issues, and it reestablishes a natural connection between how much hunger you feel and your eating patterns with what your body actually requires, right? And once you've got that fasting into your routine, then there's a bunch of other things you can do to take that to the next level. And of course, we'll explore much more of that in this second pillar, Tame Your Hunger. Pillar number 3, start moving again. And here I'm afraid I'm going to have to hit you with 2 items within the mission critical or the urgent category, okay? What are those 2 items? The first one is do moderate intensity exercise 5 to 6 times a week. And the second one is to modulate and break up your sedentary stretches, right? Now, for the first one, the key is to redefine what you consider to be exercise. This is not the sports or performance culture. It's not about killing yourself in the gym or personal best or going faster and faster and faster. No, this is simply about actively using your body 5 to 6 times a week. Now that can be walking to work, it can be cycling to work, it can be doing a casual hike on the weekend. Again, the important thing is simply to be up and moving and active 5 to 6 times during the week. And the second one is, you know, throughout the course of our evolution, we either moved or we died, literally, right? So our body has no idea what's going on when we effectively sit still for 8 hours in front of a computer or a screen. Now, I know that that's our work these days, so we have to do it. But this essentially means every 30 minutes or so, stand up, shake, stretch a bit, and every hour, walk away for 5 minutes, take a 5-minute break and use your body a little bit. Because when we sit still for like 8 hours on end, our body simply doesn't understand what's going on and actually assumes that something is wrong, right? And that ends up being harmful to our health. So those are the 2 key items within start moving again. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff that we can do here in terms of stretching and mobility and strength training and some high intensity training, yes. And we'll get into that as we discuss this pillar in more detail. But the 2 key ones are the 5 to 6 times a week, moderate intensity exercise, and breaking up these sedentary stretches. Okay, so let's start moving again. The 4th and final pillar is mind your mind. And this is all about our mental health, well-being, and vitality. And once again, I have 2 recommendations within the mission critical or urgent category. The first one is prioritize sleep. And the second one is to have gadget-free blocks to start and finish the day. Now, when I talk about sleep, I like to compare it to physical activity, right? Because most people, they understand and they recognize that physical activity is super important for their health and their overall well-being. And most make an effort to incorporate some exercise and movement into their weekly routine. Now, the interesting thing, however, is that with sleep, we don't do that. We don't give it the same focus and priority, and we should. The science is very clear that we need about 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night, and that if we achieve that, it has a massive impact on our overall health and vitality, particularly our mental health, both in the short term and the longer term, all right? And this second idea of having the gadget-free blocks to start and finish your day, well, that's tied to sleep, obviously, because that's a big part of creating the ideal conditions to get a good night's rest. But I've included it actually because I think it's a relatively simple thing you can do to start to address another and broader issue, which is this chronic stress that is so characteristic of the modern, chaotic, hectic lifestyle that we live, right? And if you actually look at this 4th pillar of recommendations, mind your mind, those are the types of topics that we're going to be fleshing out. How do you optimize your daily stress? How do you use meditation and mindfulness as a tool to help you do that? Cultivating your pack, which is this recognition of how important having strong, healthy social relationships is for our long-term health, and particularly our longevity, which the science has shown actually has a massive impact on how long and how well we live our life, right? So that's this fourth and final pillar, mind your mind. All right, cool. So that takes us through the 4 pillars of recommendations. So now let's take a step back. I'll put all 4 columns on a single page here, and we can reflect on it. Now, when I do that, your reaction is probably no freaking way. It's like, Doug, my life is already completely hectic and chaotic, and this is simply way too much stuff for me to try to change. Now, that's a fair reaction, and let's talk about that, right? Because I think this is a really important conversation, okay? So the bad news, if we choose to look at it that way, is that indeed, yes, this is a journey, and if you want to have lifelong health and vitality, you really do need to worry about everything that's on this page. Now, that said, I'm showing you like the complete framework, right? And this is a journey. So you don't have to, and you shouldn't try to incorporate all these changes into your routine right away. And the good news is that actually just doing 1 or 2 things, and I'll talk about what those are, you can already have a massive impact on your health and vitality. So this is not about trying to do this all at once. This is about, for the next 6 months, even the next year, choose 1 or 2 things on this page and work it into your routine. I've been doing this now for, like, seriously into this and doing this for about 10 years, probably 12. And yeah, it's tough, right? It's tough to make these changes and get them into your routine, but I've also found that once they are in your routine, then they're just second nature, right? So you need to do this piece by piece. And where to start, right? Now, I would say that for most people, if I were to say to do two things, right? The first one is eliminate the deceitful 3 from your diet. My research, this is, I already knew these things were bad for us, but the last 2 years of research has convinced me that these 3 ingredients in the volumes and formats that we consume them today, they are poison, okay? They are that bad for our health. So eliminate the deceitful 3, okay? That's already a tall task, I know, but start there. And then the other one is the 5 to 6 hours of moderate intensity exercise each week, right? Again, remembering that this is not the kill yourself exercise. This is the comfortable walk in the park, or the hike, or the bike ride, or just low intensity weightlifting, etc. That's enough from a health perspective. So if you can do those 2 things, right? I mean, that'll already have a massive impact on your health and your vitality. And once you've got those incorporated into your routine, then you can start moving through the other items on the list. And it really is a journey, and I personally have found it to be an incredibly rewarding journey. And just as importantly, it gives me the confidence that besides feeling great today, I'm setting myself up to live the next 50 years, because I plan to live to 100, strong and fit and healthy. All right, so that's the Revival Health set of recommendations. I hope you found the content and this discussion interesting, and I hope there were some provocations that have made you think and reflect. And I hope it got you excited about the upcoming content and videos and so forth, because there's a lot more to come. All right, so thanks and have a great rest of your day. Cheers.